Hey, it's your friend Christiano, and welcome to the Queer Quest podcast. Hello, all you fabulous souls, and welcome to another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, Christiano Green, and this week, at this episode, I'm going to be starting something brand new. I'm going to be starting a series that I want to be doing every single week that is called Dear Christiano. And basically what that whole topic and idea is basically me literally talking to myself about a topic that is meaningful to me, especially, with things that are going on in my life at the time, and sharing that with you in a way that I feel is relatable and important and, in a way that's hopefully going to start conversations and hopefully start the healing process if needed in that area of your life. So this week, I really want to be talking about family dynamics, the myth of the perfect family, all of the stuff that happens where almost we start feel like we have to be a certain way or to do certain things, or that there's this illusion that family equals unconditional love. So I'm going to be talking about my own experience, sharing, different dynamics with different family members, and so that you can obviously get an understanding. And of course, I know that for some people listening to this, it might be a little touchy. I'm trying to be as, trying to be as honest as possible, but also as, kind and courteous and compassionate to everyone else as possible as well, because I think it's important to be able to talk about it and share stuff, but also realize that your experience is your experience and other people have different experiences. So if I'm talking about other family members or other people throughout this journey, know that it's coming from my experience, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same on their end as well. So I just want to be honest and upfront. This is all about me and how I see it and what I'm working through at the moment. So let's start with the whole myth of the perfect family. Now, this is all about the societal illusion that, as what I said before, is that family equals unconditional love. And I believe that it takes a hell of a lot of work to get to a place of unconditional love for people that we have. When it comes to our family, we don't get to choose our families. We get to choose our, the other people that we hang around with for the most part. And there's some situations where you work with, it's not necessarily a choice, even you choose to be there. To hear you in that. But when it comes to our family, these relationships, we didn't pick them. We didn't pick our parents. We didn't pick our siblings. I mean, of course, maybe if you look at it on a spiritual level, coming down from souls, we choose with the life that we have. May have been, but I'm talking about on the human experience. We didn't get to necessarily choose it. We're thrown into it, and the dynamics happen, and a lot of things come to play. A lot of things come into fruition when it comes to, how your family is formed. For example, where, you look at your parents, where did they grow up? How was their life with their parents? Did they come from a solid foundation? Did other stuff happen in their life that's caused them to think a certain way? What generation have they come from? And then, of course, for you, when you come into the world, have you got other siblings? Where do you fall within the family dynamics? Like what ranking are you? Not ranking as in like best to worst, but like where did you come? First, second, third, fourth. For me, I came third boy, and then the fourth child, so there's four of them, is a girl, right? So for me, that'll come to play a lot as well. And of course, your sexuality, your gender, all of the other things that happen, along with all of the trauma that happens in life, that so much will be at play when it comes to your relationships with your family. And so when it comes down to it, some are going to understand you. Some are going to want to work towards trying to build better relationships with you, to maybe have solid foundations with you. And some will do the opposite. Some will feel like you've done wrong to them, and there's nothing that really you can do to change it unless you really meet them exactly where they are at, right? And of course, that might be the path that some of us choose, because we might be people pleasers, we might be perfectionists, we might want to have good relationships, and we don't want to, rock the boat. So we put ourselves further down the list of responsibilities and worthiness, and we put other people above us. Now, I know I've done that in the past, and it's definitely been a detriment to myself as well. when I look at my relationships, if I'm going to go through them one by one, you know, with my mum, I have a really good relationship with my mother. I feel like I can talk to her about many things there. I feel like, I went over to Australia just recently. I got back, less than 2 weeks ago. And I spent a lot of time trying to talk to my mum about different things about myself, upbringing. She asked questions. She wanted to know more, to understand more. She wanted to see if like there was a way that she could have done something more. Obviously she reads a lot of my stuff, so she understands things that maybe I haven't necessarily was explained to them. Um, so I see my mother as a person who loves all of her children. She loves all of her family. She's a family woman, and that's kind of been her overarching, I would say, number one value is family and being a beautiful mother. And I'm so grateful to have a mother like her because I feel like, even though there are things where I feel like I didn't get as much attention as I would have liked to have when I was younger, because of course, having three other siblings, it's very difficult to get everything that you need or want. And especially if you're a little bit of a different child to the others, then, it comes with a lot of stuff. And so for me, there was a period of my life where I felt, towards my mother that maybe I didn't get what I needed. And there was some hard feelings on my side because of that, because it felt like, at that stage I was in the victim mindset or blaming other people for the trauma that I'd gone through as a queer person, and struggling that, maybe if this or that had happened or this hadn't happened, then it would have been different. But the truth is that as time goes on, as I grow and evolve and I heal and I work through some of these things that I've been, struggled with and go deeper into my journeys of healing, of plant medicine and evolving, then I realized that like my mother was the perfect mother for me. She allowed me space to become the person that I am today. She allowed me that space to become stronger, to become tougher, to get to a place where I now see myself as someone who supports other people who've been through my shoes. And if I had been, babied or handled easily or had all the time in the world, then I wouldn't be this specific person that I am today. Maybe my whole life would be completely different. So when I look at where I am today, who I am today, what I'm doing today, what I'm, passionate about and supporting and working towards that, I feel like I had the perfect mother. And today our relationship is fabulous. Like I said, I spent a week and a half with them. I spent a lot of time with my mom because I'm obviously like much more closer to my mom than I am my dad. And I felt like, I really cherished the time that I spend with her. So even though there are times in the past where, you had your ups and downs, I know where I'm at with my mother today. I know that she is willing to understand me more. She's willing to try to figure things out there. She's willing to hear me when I say stuff. She's also willing to be a sounding board when I want to talk about other people in the family, in relation to myself. I'm not talking about them in a sense of like this person does this, and this. It's more about my relationship to them or how I see that person because of things that have happened. She's willing to be the sounding board without going in and getting involved with it, which is great. And I felt like I go there and do that a lot. But when I was there was definitely some conversations we had about certain things, certain, family members. And beautiful was able to be done in a way that I felt I was seen, heard, understood, and was able to express myself in a safe environment. Now, you ever feel like the world wasn't built for you? Like you were born queer, and then you had to spend your whole life recovering from what that meant to everybody else. Yeah, me too. But I turned that pain into purpose. My name is Christiano Green. I'm a queer transformation coach and the founder of QueerQuest, the world's first personal development platform created exclusively for LGBTQA plus people. We don't just talk about healing or growth and self-love. We live it. We teach it. We queer the hell out of it. I built QueerQuest because I wanted every queer person to have access to the tools, to the teachers, and to the community that helped save my life. And I'm talking emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of it. This isn't just a platform. It's a revolution of self-return. A sacred space where your queerness is celebrated, your truth is seen, and your excellence is activated. So if you're ready to grow, to heal, and to rise as the queer badass that you were born to be, come join us. Your quest begins now. Now, when it comes to, say, my relationship with my father, that's a little bit different than it is to my mom. Now, do I know that my father loves me? Yes. Do I think that my father understands me and all about me, especially me as a queer person? Not really at all. Now, I know that in his world, he's tried to do that. And we did have some conversations that, you know, were us talking about certain things for the first time, things that have happened 10, 15, almost 20 years ago, around the time when I was going through a lot as a young person, struggling with my own journey, and some of the things that he said to me, and how that what that did, what that impression that left on me as well. And I realized throughout the conversation that he has built up this own story in his head, his version of events that happened on his side. That's totally valid, right? He's seeing it from his perspective. I have a completely different version of the way it was. And it's kind of difficult to be able to have a conversation with someone where you want to express your perspective and they don't want to hear it as much as well. Or they're not willing to necessarily understand your perspective, because if they understand your perspective, then they might have to then break down the barriers of what that means to them, what that does for their version of events. And maybe there's a part of them that isn't willing to do that. So I just, heard him out, tried to express myself to get to a better place, but I kind of left that place realizing that not everyone in your family is ever going to fully understand you, fully understand your experience, especially when it comes to being a queer person, being a gay person, being gender fluid, all of these different things, when, they may have no real understanding of what that's like, other than knowing people like you. I know my dad, when it comes to gay people, he knew a gay couple many, many years ago for a short period of time. And his representation of gay people was that it was a domestic violence couple. And sometimes he had to get involved in trying to sort things out there minutely. So his representation of gay people was things like that. And he obviously didn't want that for me. So anything that he said to me, I believe, came out of worry and fear. Now, he said to me when I was younger that he knew that my life was going to be difficult because of the choices that I made. And so the kinds of language that he uses, and of course, the things that he said to me, they stuck to me for a while, and they caused me to feel certain ways about myself and about our relationship. Of course, I've worked through those things, and I can move past, and I can understand where he's coming from. So I love him for who he is. Yet I still think that maybe I think I've had to come to terms with, especially lately since I come back from Australia, and grieving the fact that we're never going to have that kind of a relationship. But I guess I was hoping that we might have one day where he does understand my experiences, he does understand where I come from. But at this point, it's not that. And so I've had to, it's been a little bit sad, but that's processing. That's me processing the emotions that I'm going through when it comes to grieving the relationship that I really wanted to be able to have at some point. Now, I'm not saying that we're never going to get there. I'm just saying that he's 75 in a couple of months, and the way that he sees the world and the way that he is hasn't really shifted or changed at all. He's the type of person who watches the news every day, believes everything he hears on TV, and I'm just not that way at all. I'm the type of person who's more willing to go deeper, to question things, to seek out further information. And so when he hears something about it, and my points of view is different, I know that there's going to be a conflict to clash. So oftentimes I don't speak up, I don't say my opinion about things, because I don't want to have the confusion or the conflict. Ultimately, for some reason, I feel like we ultimately end up having some sort of conflict when I do spend time with him. Now, that's probably because we are so different, and maybe me expressing myself or showing up as who I am, maybe it does cause some triggers in him as well. Like I said, I don't know, because he's not forthright into talking about those things, especially not his emotions with with me anyway. Um, so yeah, so I've come to terms that, like I said, my father is my father. I love him for who he is. I just have to accept now that it's not going to be the same on him understanding me for who I am and having that. But do I love him unconditionally? Yes, I do. And I'll work hard to continue to try to build a better relationship in the best way that I possibly can, by also realizing that there's also only going to be a limit of how close I feel we can be. Again, love him, don't want to say bad words about him, but people come from different worlds. People grow up differently, and that's just how it is. And when we talk about, say, my siblings, moving on to those there, now I've got two older brothers, I said, and a younger sister. So I'll start with my younger sister because that's where the relationship I feel is strongest out of all of the siblings. Now, we're only 1.5 years apart. Um, I feel like when it comes down to personality and how we've been and whatnot, we have a lot of similarities in there. Of course, we have a lot of differences in how we see the world and how we see things as well, and that's totally okay. But I feel like our connection is the strongest. Now, have we had our issues in the past? Sure. There was a period where we didn't speak for, I don't know, 1.5, 2 years, something a long time because of, I feel like built up stuff that happened. The kind of relationship that you have with a family member where lots of little things might have happened over the years from when you were younger all the way up until now. And you just kind of swept them to the side and you might have really been hurt by them, but you just never spoke about them properly with that person. And it built up and it built up and it built up to a point where I think that there was just so much happening, especially on that side where that person didn't feel like they could talk about it. And so for almost 2 years, we didn't really speak, or whenever we did, it was very, very, very minimal. We didn't have a relationship like we did before. Now, for example, when I first came out, uh, my sister was the only person that knew out of the family. He even came out and would spend time with me and my friends in Sydney, when she was part of that kind of friend group that we would have, or we would go out often. And yeah, like I said, we were kind of like a little dynamic duo on the scene, in a sense where people knew that we were brother and sister, and we all shared a lot of similar friendships as well. Um, and so yeah, we did have a great relationship, but again, still lots of little things that would happen throughout those years on both sides, where I think would build up some sort of issue, some tension, and it got to be too much. And that person decided that they needed some time and space to maybe go through their own stuff. They moved overseas to a different country as well, and so things shifted for both people, for me and for her. But again, we ultimately worked through it, let things go and be in the past, and kind of almost create a new relationship where we are today. So the relationship that we have now to versus, say, I don't know how many years ago that was when we stopped before we talked, before chatting and after chatting, um, uh, is a completely different relationship. Now, I don't feel like there's any on my side. I've definitely worked to heal and let go of things and accept her for who she is completely, as much as I possibly can. For my understanding of who she is, right? And I love her. I do. I love my sister very much, and I feel like when she needs support, she comes to me, which I really love, and I feel like whenever she comes to me, I'll drop almost what I'm doing and try to support her through anything she needs. Of course, she can call me for every single thing, but when it's something that I know that she's really having some, I guess, maybe some psychological, turmoil. Well, I guess not psychological sounds like she's crazy, but well, when she has like some internal issues or issues with a relationship or friendship or something going on, she'll reach out to me and we'll have a chat, and hopefully I can give her some advice that supports her in making a decision that's right for her. Because ultimately, I'm not here to tell her what to do. I'm here to try to help her figure out what's right for her, which is what I do with all of my clients as well. And that's kind of how I see people and try to work with them. It's like, I don't want to tell someone what to do in life. I don't want to tell my brothers, my sisters, my mom, my dad, any of my family what to do. I want them to live their life because, again, they're coming from the model of the world. They're coming from their own experiences. So how I live my life and how they live their life is different. And I can't expect that me telling them how to live their life is the ultimate perfection of how life should be. Because, again, their experiences will tell them differently, and they should live life in the way that works best for them. I'm just going off from where I'm at in my situation, and I can only share from that. So with my sister, I feel like we have a great relationship. She's moving back to Australia in the next 12 months or so. And that's fantastic because she's going to be closer. Being in the UK and in Bali, that's a long, long way. So we don't get to see each other very often. And so if she lives, in Australia, then I'll get to see her, more often, a couple of times a year. She'll come to Bali. I'll go to Australia to see family and be able to catch up, which is great. See people in person and continue to build more real, authentic relationships as well. So there's that. You've survived closets, shame, rejection, silence, perfectionism, burnout, and heartbreak. But survival was never the end goal. It's time for your queer comeback. I'm Christiano Green, queer transformation coach and the creator of The Queer Comeback, a free webinar for LGBTQIA+ souls ready to heal, ready to rise, and ready to reclaim who the F they are. This isn't self-help, it's queer soul revival. Inside this masterclass, I'll share the 3 things every queer person needs to know to finally break free from society's judgments, awaken their queer spirit, and live unapologetically, spiritually, emotionally, and fully embodied. You weren't born to shrink. You were born to come back louder, softer, fiercer, wiser, queerer than ever. This is your invitation to come home to yourself. Join the Queer Comeback free, live, transformational, because your next chapter doesn't start with shame, it starts with you. Sign up now, link in bio. What's that? And when it comes to, say, my other relationships, my brothers, they're very different to who I am. Let's start with that in the sense of like how they see the world and how they operate and what they like, all their interests, the things that they do. Very, very different. Now, my older brother has, gone through a number of marriages and they've not worked out. And, the way that I see him is that he's a bit of a kind of a people pleaser and wants love so badly that he will do what he can and kind of push his family to the side in order to get that kind of love. Because I guess for him, having a relationship, a partner, probably the most important value that I see that he has. And so for him, like I said, when it's come down to it, I felt that there's times where he's put that need above, I guess, his relationships with me specifically. And, he's also the type of person that how I see him is that he'll come to you and he wants to vent, but doesn't want you to give him any feedback or any advice. He just wants to bitch and moan. In other words, I would use sometimes for him. Now, that's okay. That's cool. But to me, that's not how I want to have a relationship. And so if we're going to have a relationship and you want to talk to me about things, then you're going to have to know that I'm going to also want to share things and be honest as well. And so when someone doesn't want to hear those things, it's very difficult, again, to have a deeper relationship with them in that sense. Because, again, how they see the world, their model of the world is different to yours. And so there's going to be some conflict. Now, do I love my brother? Yes, I do. I love my, he had a beautiful daughter, my niece, Zara. Of course, I love her as well. I love all of my family. Again, though, it's hard to be close to people when, again, they don't necessarily always show interest in your life or, again, want to understand your own experiences. And so, again, for me, I love him. We have a very different outlook of life. We live different lives. Where we live is different. I'm in Bali. He's in, Sydney, Australia, with where his family is. He may be moving overseas to Canada and stuff like that. But we don't really have a relationship where we speak very, very often at all. It's very rarely that we would have a conversation. And it's usually when he's struggling about something and, he's trying to call out anyone and everyone who will listen to him because he's in pain and he just wants to talk. And, not everyone can talk to him 24 hours a day. So he calls and does the loop and then blah, blah, blah. You have that cycle. And then he may not like what you have to say. And then we want to speak to you. And that's okay. That's cool. And for me, that's just not how I operate in a sense. So if it's going to be a relationship where, it's one-sided or where I feel like, we're only getting what is right for you, then it doesn't feel authentically a place where I want to continue to put huge amounts of effort into it when we see the world differently. Now, I love him, of course, and I always wish the best for him when he has successes and he shares them in our family group. I'm always very happy to see that he's doing, because he likes to do long distance walking and running, 100-kilometer things like that. And, you know, what if he goes on travels? I spend time so stuck with my niece, and I love that. I do. I love seeing him happy. And in that sense, I get a sense deep down that there's a lot of stuff that he's not willing to go through when it comes to, I guess, healing or dealing with things. And so that's just my perception of it. But I love him, but we're just not the same people. Now, my other brother, Russell, he now lives in the UK. He's been there for like 5, 6, 7 years, maybe longer. I don't know. And he's got a, beautiful partner. They've got a home together. She's got kids. And, they're working towards building a future for themselves. Me and him, again, we just come from completely different worlds. Like what we're into, how we see the world is different as well. But on my part, I don't see that there's any negativity there. There's no like, oh, you've done this to me, or I've done this to you, where there's something that I feel like we're holding on to. None of that stuff. I just think that we're different. We live in different places. We have different things. When I speak to him, I definitely feel a more sense of like, oh, like I want to understand more about what's going on in your life and any things like that. So to me, there's no negativity there. Is there been in the past? Of course there has. Like I'm coming into, I'm in my 40th year, right? Turning 40 next year, right? I'm in my 40th version around the sun. And, he's a couple of years older than me. So, what happens when you're kids and you go through stuff? There's always going to be stuff and different dynamics, of course. But I don't think that there's anything that I'm holding on to or seeing that when I look back, where I would say like, on one side, there's this negativity. It's not. I think there's love there for sure. It's just that we're different, for sure. And that's okay. What he's into and what he enjoys about life, and then he's got his life over in the UK. I've got mine in Bali with my partner and my business and my friends and all that. We're different. Of course, when we see each other or get a chance to speak, I think it's only good things there. I don't see any negativity in there. And I think for him, with where he's at with the partner that he's got, I think he's found his person. So that makes me really happy to see that as well. That's kind of like the family dynamics that I have there. But it comes down to it, again, we can do a lot of work on ourselves, especially as queer people. We need to deal with a lot of the trauma that we had gone through in our life. And again, sometimes our family will not acknowledge that or see it or understand it or feel like, you going and working on yourself or shifting or changing somehow means something, about them. When the truth is that it's always about us. What we want to do to heal, we might think that there's a part of us that we're doing it for this relationship over here, but we're actually doing it for us. Now, if the relationship gets better or ultimately doesn't, that's okay too, right? It's about trying to figure out with your own family, your dynamics, how big they are or where you sit or any of those things, that how can you feel more seen or heard or understood by these people who are, in your life that you're supposed to, have some deeper connection to. Of course, we have different lenses, we've got different lives, and us healing does change how you see your family and how your family may see you as well. Because again, if you're the certain person and you do this deep work on yourself, or you go on the journey of trying to continue to heal, people may or may not take that in a good way or a bad way. And that comes with some grief. Like I said, you might let go of versions of people that you had in your mind of them, because that is all that it is. The way that we see people, especially our family, that's just the version that we see. Who they are is completely more complex and bigger and wiser and going through a whole lot of different things than we can always ever understand. So the grief of wishing that they could understand us more is real. And I'm processing that in the sense of just like, it's part of my healing and coming back to wholeness as well. And it's also that freedom knowing now that as I go through that healing, I just don't need them to. I don't need them to understand me or get me or see me for true who I am. If I see that, if I own that, if I live that, then that's the only thing that really matters, is me being able to be my most authentic, truthful self and doing it from a place of love, and then having the freedom to do that. And also realize that some people may or may not like that, and that's totally okay. Now, we look at things where, some things will be a trigger for someone, some things are going to be an inspiration for others. So you going through your journey might inspire another person in your family to go, you know what, he's working on his health, he's working on his business, he's working on his finding love and dealing with all these things. that might inspire someone else to go, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to look at something as well. Maybe I need to see something within me that needs to shift as well. And so being able to be an inspiration is great. But also when we look at it, for other people, you can be a complete trigger. You healing and changing might feel like you're moving forward and they're being left behind, or that you're cutting them out, or whatever it is, because you're doing things that are good for you. Not necessarily about what's right for them, but what's good for you. But either way, none of it's personal, and how they see you as a trigger or inspiration, it is what it is. My growth, it might push some people away in my family, or it might make me closer to them, or that will change at different points of my life, depending on how they grow in here and what they do for their own journey as well. It's really not a personal thing, but it's their own discomfort with change, or with seeing you differently, or with whatever's happened in the past that they may or may not be able to get over. And then you being able to get over it causes them some internal stuff. So we can't control how they feel, how they react, or how they choose to see it as well. And that's okay. We don't need to. Because really what we want to be focused on is, how do we love people without the illusion? To really learn to love people as they are without needing them to be different, without having them to be who you want them to be, letting them be who they are and seeing that. And that's the thing that I feel like when I'm going through my healing journey, especially with where I'm currently at in my healing journey, I'm really trying to learn to love the people in my family for who they are, not who I want them to be or who they could have been, or without wanting them to be different, or for them to change, or for them to, accept me or understand me differently. I want to love them for who they truly are. Whether that means we have a closer relationship or a more distant relationship, it's okay, because for me, on my side, there isn't any hard feelings. Today, I'm sharing things about stuff so you can get an understanding. But the truth is that I don't have any hard feelings towards them. I am dealing with a little bit of grief at the moment, trying to grieve the fact that, I wanted maybe my father to understand me more. And that was part of the reason I wanted to go on this trip and learn more about their life. So they did. I asked a lot of questions about their upbringing, but that's okay. It's not a deep pain of like, oh my God, this person doesn't like, they hate me or they don't see me. It's just something that we all have to accept at some point, and not everyone's going to understand our journey. So I'm letting go of the performance. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to prove that I'm healing. I don't have to prove that I'm growing. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. As long as I'm seeing it for myself, because they're going to meet you there or they're not going to meet you there. And it is what it is, right? They're going to meet me or they're not going to meet me. And that's cool. So what does it mean to truly move forward in life, especially when it comes to our family? Healing is self-responsibility. It's a responsibility that we have to ourselves to be able to do that. And if other people aren't on board or on that same step as you, it's okay. When you forgive others for what they've done, you also need to learn how to forgive yourself for what you've done as well. Because all of that forgiveness is not a gift to other people, but it's actually just a doorway towards peace for yourself, and hopefully bring some sort of peace to the other person. But it's not the ultimate goal. Your forgiveness of what's happened in the past, good, bad, and ugly on both sides, is all about your own peace. And an understanding of that is freedom there. That is something beautiful for us to be able to do. Now, possibly times in my life I wanted to, wish different things when I was younger from a different perspective, and, how, how, how seeing things differently at that time would have changed a lot. But everything went perfectly where I am today. Yes, have I had a lot of stuff that's happened that's good, bad, and ugly? And I had to heal from that. I had to grow from that. I had to learn from that. I wouldn't be the strong person that I am today. I wouldn't know what I am today. I wouldn't have this ability to try to be as authentic as possible because of that. So I'm not going to go and say, this is what I want you to have understood at your age, because everything is perfectly aligned. I really, truly believe that. And, I could go and say, like, if I was go back to my 8-year-old self, I could say this. I don't really have a lot to say in that sense. Well, because I am who I am today because of all of those experiences. And of course, I found, chosen family. I've been able to actually find family that I choose that see me for who I am and understand me for who I am and love me for who I am fully. Of course, not 100 million percent, because not everyone would ever understand another person 100%. But for who they see, they love me and they see me. And those are the relationships where if I will ever feel like I need to be understood, I can go to them, or I can go to those people in my family that I feel like will understand me from that as well. So, really, I really wanted to share a little bit about that because that's kind of what's been going through my mind recently because was just with family. And of course, it's a new series, Dear Christiano. I'm planning, as I bring out 2 episodes every single week, that, one of the episodes is going to be something more real and more like this. And the other one's going to be, on a lot of cool topics that are, along the realm of what I've been already sharing. So if you want to kind of see that, look back at the past 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes, and you'll kind of get a flow of what I'm trying to, talk about when it comes to this podcast. Of course, if you got a lot of value out of today, which I really trust that you will have, please comment, like, share, tag, subscribe, review, whatever you can to get this podcast out to more people, especially more people in the queer community, because what you do there and doing these things will really support the algorithm on all the numbers and hopefully means that someone who really needs to hear this episode today will get it. And of course, I'm going to leave some stuff in the resources below. And of course, you'll see little things that are happening throughout the episode where I've stopped for a second that you can grab those, listen to those, and see the resources, click on those things. If we see you in one of the webinars or in the Queer Quest Pro, that's amazing. You'll find out all the information through the links. Well, of course, I'm going to be back with another episode very soon. But until then, always remember that you've got this, I've got you. Share with me, any stuff that you have about your family or questions you want to talk about, or if I can coach you something or support you, feel free to reach out to me. Just a conversation, not to, sign up for everything. It doesn't always have to be that way. But I know that I love hearing from you guys when you can reach out and tell me about what you loved about the episode. All right. Bye for now. Speak to you soon. Hey, love. While I've got you, I want to gift you with something powerful. Something I wish I had when I was cracked open and crawling through the mess of heartbreak, shame, and that deep ache of, why am I like this? If you've ever felt like healing is this confusing, invisible maze where you're just surviving one emotional breakdown after another. If you've been wondering, is something wrong with me? I want you to know, you're not lost. You're not broken. You're becoming. Most queer people were never given a roadmap for healing. We were taught to hide, to perform, and to shrink. We've been gaslit by religion, erased by culture, and taught to just get over it. But healing isn't a straight line, especially when you're queer. It's not just about feeling better. It's about coming home to your queer, radiant, whole hour self. That's why I created the Journey to Queer Healing, a free guide that maps out the 18 emotional stages of queer healing. It's not just theory, it's your soul survival map. You'll see where you are, what's next, and what's possible on the other side of the pain. This guide has helped hundreds of queer people realize it's not just me. I'm not behind. I finally understand what I'm going through. Download the guide today. Let it remind you, your healing isn't random. It's divine. Download it now via the link in the show notes. Or you can comment guide on this video or on any of my socials and I'll send it directly to you. And when you're ready to go deeper, join us for the Queer Comeback webinar. Let's make your healing sacred and make your comeback legendary. I'll see you on the journey.